The following program is sponsored by Cipher Media International. I'm John Underwood, and welcome to Backstory, a program that attempts to look behind the headlines at the issues and events that affect our lives here in Orange County. Today we're going to dip into the world of electric vehicle ownership. In 2015 and 16, more electric vehicles were purchased in the United States than in all previous years combined. Virtually every car manufacturer these days fields an electric or a line of electric car vehicles for popular purchase in the open market. So it behooves us to ask the question, and hopefully we'll get a few answers in this program to follow. Does it make sense, Mr. and Mrs. American car buying consumer, finally now to consider an electric vehicle in your garage? Well, we have in the studio today two gentlemen who have taken that EV option and have gone all electric over the years. In some cases over a span of a great deal of time, and in some cases just recently. Anyway, these two gentlemen represent electrical vehicle ownership in a spectrum that we hope many of you out there will find interesting and may even fit into. So we'll start on my left, Michael Manning of Los Alamitos. Michael, you've been an advocate for electric fuel alternatives for, God, over a decade. Biofuels, hydrogen fuels, the diesel, and have finally settled on electric vehicle ownership, hybrid and all electric vehicle ownership. Ron Kochi on my right is a recent entree into the electric vehicle market. He's owned a Tesla S, and most recently upgraded to a P85D. And we have a little clip of how exciting that can get. Two gentlemen representing two very different philosophies about electric vehicles, and we're hoping we can bring that together today for you out there when you're making your decision about electric vehicle ownership. But first, I want to share with you a little B-roll clip that we put together just to give us a little bit of the history of the electric vehicle and bring us up to date. And then when we come back, we'll hit the ground running in conversation about electric vehicles. But it's a little B-roll clip we hope will bring you up to speed, a little thing we call EV Rising. Anyone remember the EV1? General Motors' leased entree into an all-electric passenger car that maybe caught on a little too well. What started as an electric concept car for the future quickly became a must-have mode of transportation for more Americans than General Motors wanted to admit. And within 3 years, GM had crushed that future literally. By recalling all 1,000 of these little marvels of technology, crushing them like bugs at the dinner table for reasons unknown to us mere mortals. And for the moment, the internal combustion engine would maintain its unchallenged grip on the American consumer. It took a decade for car companies to step into the electric vehicle market again, and it took an aerospace company to produce an EV car that was truly space age and capture the public imagination again. This was Tesla's Roadster, followed by a successful, albeit high-priced sedan, and close behind, almost every other established car company, and even some not so established, getting into the EV act. It is clear that the electric vehicle is here to stay this time, and looks like the technology of choice that will prevail over other valid but less popular alternative choices like hydrogen and biofuel vehicles. There are many variations and styles within the electric car family, ranging from gas engine supported hybrid plug-ins to solely battery charged and powered vehicles. But they all share the common feature of electricity as the primary fuel source. Regenerative braking systems to partially recharge battery life during operation, and a hyper-aerodynamic design to reduce wind resistance. Nissan has the all-electric Leaf, BMW the i3, Ford's is the Fusion, and Chevy's mainline electric passenger car is the Volt. Local Los Alamitos resident Michael Manning owns a Volt, one of the EV models enjoying a recent uptick in sales. He's owned a few electric and other alternative fuel cars on his way to his plug-in Volt, and he took us on a short tour of that learning process.
Well, certainly this is something that has developed over time. I've had a diesel-powered car since 1982. This is the second Mercedes diesel that I've owned. I was at a show and they talked about biodiesel fuel there, and I thought, well, that's something I might be interested in, and so I looked into it, and in January of 2008 began running my diesel car pretty much entirely on biodiesel fuel. After buying that, I thought, I really want something that's just not gasoline, something different than gasoline. So I looked into natural gas and did a little bit of research and thought, that's a direction I want to go. Cleaner burning, less expensive, the fuel is less expensive, and all of our natural gas is domestically sourced, so we're not buying natural gas from foreign sources. Then later I thought, well, even something cleaner than natural gas would be electric. There's zero tailpipe emissions with an electric car. So we purchased a Chevrolet Volt, and we currently have 15,000 miles on that car, 13,000 of which have been all electric using the battery of the car.
Now, much is made of the regenerative braking system, which this is a plug-in hybrid, does, in addition to a small gas tank, maintain some electrical regeneration through the braking system. How much can you really depend on that?
Well, it does help. You can see right now on the little chart that we are regenerating because we're slowing down, and it says regen power recovery, and you see the flow of electricity from the wheels, and that's how it's showing it back into the battery. But you're still going to use a lot of electricity. It just helps to recover some of it when you brake gently, or when you slow down, or when you're going downhill.
However, it is the Tesla that currently leads the way for car innovation and surging orders for new models with the improved battery technology and expanded range between charges. But again, for a price. A price Ron Kochi of College Park East is only too happy to pay to achieve the ultimate electric driving experience. He also took us on a short and occasionally accelerated tour of his pride and joy, a Tesla P85D with the 10% acceleration upgrade like it needed it.
Hello, my name is Ron Kochi, owner of this beautiful brand new Tesla P85D, fastest production car in town right now. It is a beautiful car. It's the technology owner's dream. Let me take you for a little ride in this new P85D, and I'll kind of show you what it'll do. And in a combustion car, you hear the noise and you feel it and all this kind of stuff. Now there's no feeling, there's no noise, it's just sensation, you know? You hear the noise in a gas car, you know to get ready, right? There's no getting ready, you're going. Okay, you ready? Okay, here we go, we're gonna stop. Okay, here we go, 1, 2, 3. That was 3 seconds. I can do it again if you want to try again.
No, I think I'm.
How's it feel back there?
I never liked roller coasters.
Like I said, this is your own private amusement park ride.
I'm getting that feeling from you.
It never gets old. If you want to go again, just let me know.
No, I'm good. I think you've made your point, Ron.
But what about the rest of us common folk, who don't necessarily have a burning need to go 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, but may desire a car that treads lightly around the gas pump and leaves less of a carbon footprint than a moped? What are the range of real-world choices that offer us today an affordable buy-in to this bright green future of the EV car? With so many electric vehicles coming onto the market today, does it finally make sense now to go electric? Has the future finally arrived? Okay, back to studio for this EV edition of Backstory. And as we said earlier, we have two gentlemen here representing EV ownership at very, I think, different ends of the philosophical spectrum, I think we could say. So let's pull that together and ask once again the question that the clip asks. Ultimately, is it finally time for Joe consumer out there about to make another purchase of an automobile, time for him to think about putting an electric vehicle in his garage?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
With a bit of a caveat, I suppose. If a person wants a regular sedan for commuting, there are plenty of options that can do that well in the EV market today. If a person wants something different than that, a lot of people like pickup trucks or SUVs or minivans. The options are a lot fewer. So a lot depends on what the person's real needs or desires are. But a lot of us are fine with a sedan, or at least one of them in the fleet of vehicles that we own. And there are lots of good options in the EV market today.
Yeah, it's coming from someone who's thinking on electric vehicles is, if I'm not mistaken, basically commuter oriented. That is to say, getting from here to there on a day-to-day basis, and shorter trips. The Volt will certainly do that, which is a gas-assisted vehicle as well. That will get you extra range. The Spark that you more recently purchased along the same lines, a commuter sort of vehicle. Ron Kochi, you have a little different perspective on electric vehicle ownership, and you obviously your enthusiasm comes through in the clip. You look at it a little bit differently, don't you?
I do. I think electric vehicles have changed a lot in the last, say, at least 5 years. If you look at a Tesla, I mean, it is actually a real car. It looks just like any ordinary car. If you hadn't known anything about it, you'd think it's an internal combustion engine car. I think what's nice about the Tesla is that it gives you significant range. I've taken that car from Los Angeles to San Francisco, Los Angeles to Phoenix, to Tucson, to San Diego, to Vegas, and it drives like a normal car. You use the Tesla supercharger stations that charge the battery 80% in about 30, 35 minutes, and that's enough. I can go from LA to Vegas with one stop, 35 minutes, and then I'm into Vegas. So I'm quite used to the car. I'm very comfortable with its range, and you could go about 200 to 240 miles based on if you want air conditioning, if you want to go 65, or if you just want to stay at some normal freeway speed.
Well, you know, Ron, you're in a business where you travel.
Yes.
You're in the I understand telecommunications industry, and it necessitates that. Well, you were in Sparks, Nevada.
Yes.
Recently for
Yes.
the rollout.
Yes, the Gigafactory opening.
Yeah, and so you have a sort of a long range reach.
Yes.
And the Tesla comes in.
Yes.
To that. I mean, you could even go to Vegas with a one stop
That's correct.
pit stop.
That's
in,
correct.
What, Barstow?
Yes.
In your Tesla. What if you were a commuter guy that, let's say like Michael here, who is a teacher and teaches locally here in the Southland. You don't, let's say you didn't have to commute hundreds of miles or just wanted let's say like Michael wanted a commuter car. Would you buy a Tesla?
I would, because a Tesla, you could charge it, typically I can charge mine about once every 5 to 7 days, because my work commute's about 3 miles each way. I do a lot of long range driving, but my work commute's relatively short, so I treat that more or less like a gas car in the sense that I charge it once a week, I fill it once a week. But you have the option of doing short range trip or long range trip. The car, I think, behaves like any other car. It has about 19 moving parts in the whole car because it's all electric. I think it's a very reliable car. It's a very comfortable car. It has a remote control that you can turn on the air conditioning. You can back it up by itself. You can open the garage and park itself. I mean, it literally does so many nice automated things, and I think it could be a daily commuting car.
Now, Michael, you've listened to Ron, his argument for a Tesla. Why would you not own a Tesla? And knowing what you know today, you've come up through the trenches, literally, from biofuels and other alternative fuel systems. You still own a hydrogen vehicle,
Natural gas.
a natural gas vehicle. Would you move up to a Tesla? Are you happy with what you're driving today, the Chevy Volt and the Chevy, more recently, the Chevy Spark?
I think both of those vehicles have been a good fit for us. And the next vehicle that I'm considering will replace a minivan. And I've recently looked at the Tesla Model X, which is a 7-passenger vehicle. And I'm not pleased by the amount of interior room that it has compared to a traditional minivan. It's just not as spacious. That coupled with, I struggle with the notion of spending over $100,000 for a car. I'm actually now retired, and do I want to take money from my retirement savings to pay the extra for for a Tesla, or is there a better way I could use that money?
Yeah, so certainly the price tag
The price tag is a big
matters
deal.
to you.
Yeah. I mean, Tesla is a wonderful car. The performance is outstanding. They have the range above 200 miles, which so far they're the only electric car to be able to do that. I think eventually the Chevy Bolt will be able to do that, but it's not in production yet. And there's a lot to be said for the advantages of that.
Well, of course, in a Tesla, and I took a ride in your Tesla, and I took a ride in your Volt, and I have to say that the Tesla ride was on par with the Lexus ride, for example, that I'm familiar with. The Chevy Volt, not quite as Cadillac, shall we say, as the Tesla ride. Does that even matter to you? I mean, what are the 1, 2, 3 operant necessary demands that you have for an electric vehicle? What do they need to do in order of 1, 2, and 3?
Well, I suppose it needs to be efficient, because you could still have an electric vehicle that's not efficient, and it needs to do the task that you're wanting it to do. And for some people, that'll be different things. If a group of people has a large family, I have grandkids that I want to haul around in car seats, and it needs to be able to hold all of those things and make that work. some people, they need to haul around materials and equipment in their vehicles, and there again, some of the sedans just won't be able to do that. But for us, the regular commute has been fine. I don't care that much about it. I mean, I like a nice ride, but even the Chevy Spark, which is just a little itty-bitty car, it's a fun car to drive because it's electric. Now, it's about twice as slow in 0 to 60 as the Tesla is, but it can sure beat a lot of cars, and it's instantaneous torque. And it's a kick in the pants.
Oh, it's fast enough.
Yeah.
We took some little bit of video of that car, and maybe we'll show the viewers how fast it is. But well, okay, let's talk a little bit about cost per mile, if we can break it down, because really that's what it comes down to for folks who are trying to decide what they can afford, whether they want to buy an electric vehicle. You mentioned, Ron, that the 19 moving parts to the car, so serviceability has got to be. I mean, how many moving parts in a traditional internal combustion engine?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay. Any which of one could go bad at any time, and often do, in my case. But so that's got to be part of that equation of serviceability and cost per mile. Michael, you came up with a chart somewhat, and that identifies cost of charging an electric vehicle versus buying a gallon of gas at the pump.
Right.
And show us that little breakdown that you have there.
Well, what I've done here is I've actually compared a Chevrolet Spark EV, the battery-powered electric Chevrolet Spark, to a gasoline Chevrolet Spark. Most Chevrolet Sparks are actually just a gasoline motor.
Okay.
And I think that's a fair comparison. And I've done the numbers. If the cost per kilowatt hour for electricity, what would that be equivalent to on the gasoline version and a cost per gallon of gasoline? So for example, for the consumer who might be just on the standard rate with Southern California Edison, what they call Schedule D, which is a tiered system, if they're at the lowest tier, paying 16 cents a kilowatt hour, that's the same as if they were paying about $1.52 per gallon of gasoline.
Okay.
So pretty cheap.
Okay.
On the other hand, if the same consumer already is at tier 3 because they've been running their air conditioner a lot and all of that, they pay 29 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. So that's about the same as paying $2.76 a gallon for gasoline. So they're not really getting any savings there. And so another thing that people might want to consider, well, no, let me talk about this first. Also, when you go to public charging stations, some of them don't charge you per kilowatt hour, they charge you per hour. And that can get actually pretty pricey. Yeah. The most expensive station happens to be here locally. The city of Seal Beach operates 3 of them, 2 in one of the beach parking lots and 1 just off Main Street. And for some reason, they've chosen a rate of $3.44 an hour to charge, which is the highest rate of any vehicle charging station that I'm aware of, any public vehicle charging station.
And at that point, would that cost actually exceed the cost of a gallon at a gas pump?
It's about equivalent to $9.98 a gallon.
Wow.
Almost $10 a gallon.
Okay. All right.
And so it's not particularly a cost-effective way.
Yeah.
So, I don't go to that charging station because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And I think probably a lot of people don't.
So the bottom line,
unfortunate.
it can get very pricey if you're in the wrong tier or in the wrong charging station place to recharge your car. But Ron, you made a point earlier on that one does not necessarily have to live within that tier system.
Right, so-
owning an electric vehicle.
So if you own an electric car, what you would do immediately is you would change to a time of use metering system, which means that you would have a peak and an off-peak time. So on my plan, the peak is about 6 hours in a day, and the off-peak is in the evening and all the way into the early morning, or into noon. And for my car to charge, it costs about $7.50, $7.75 to fully charge. And at that rate, it's about 25% of what a gallon of gas would cost. So my charging at home is very, very efficient, very cost effective, and the first move getting an electric car would be to switch to time of use, so you wouldn't have to pay tiered prices.
And just in time of use, meaning that you would be charging at off-peak hours in the night, which
And
you would
the
do
car
anyway.
and the car automatically sets that time. You could charge whenever I plug into home, it automatically says I'll start charging at 8 p.m.
Okay.
And it does that automatically. And if I want to override it, I can hit an override button.
Okay. Now, charging the Tesla at home with your
Yes.
240 volt system,
Yes, 240, 50 amp.
how long does it take?
It takes about 7.5 hours. And that's because I only have one charger in the car. The car supports 2 chargers, which go to 100 amp 240, and then it would charge in about 3.5 hours.
Okay. Michael Manning, you also have an in-home charging station. How long does it take to charge your Chevy Volt?
Chevy Volt is about 4 hours on 220, and the Chevy Spark is about 7 hours on 220. Both of them using a 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger, which is much smaller than the Tesla charger.
And if I could just add one more point. So you talked about commuting, local driving. So the nicest thing about Tesla is that they have supercharger stations, which was on your clip. And a supercharger station means that if I'm going to go from Los Angeles to Vegas, I'm going to stop in Barstow, do one stop. That charges, if the car is relatively empty when I get there, it charges at 400 volts, 300 amps. And in 35 minutes, I get an 80% charge, and that's enough to continue the drive to Vegas. And that charging is free at all Tesla charging stations. Yeah. There's approximately 450 Tesla charging stations just in the United States, and then probably another 450 worldwide. Yeah. And that's going to double by the end of next year.
Well, this begs the question, and I'm sure it comes up for you folks out there. Well, okay, well, does that mean both of you gentlemen have charging stations in your home? Does that mean now if I'm going to go out and buy an electric vehicle, now I've got to jump through the next hoop and I've got to solarize my house and be able to engage Edison on the type of off-peak hour charging contract that Edison does provide? Do I need to go that next step and solarize my house and be able to, and then put a charging station in my home? Is all of that necessary for somebody who wants to buy an electric car?
I think for solar charging, it's not necessary to have solar power to have an electric car. However, an in-home charging station, yes. And the reason is that if you're going to get an electric car, you need the option to charge at home. With Tesla, you have supercharger stations, but you're not supposed to use supercharger stations for local charging. In other words, people that live in the city don't use supercharging to live in the city. Supercharging is for traveling, but you need a station home. But I don't think it's necessary to have electric power. It just solar power, but it just helps the ecosystem. It helps your power use in the home to be virtually zero. Well, I have a zero electric bill.
I see. And Michael, how would you answer that question?
Probably similarly. They do need to consider time of use, a time of use plan of some sort. Currently, Edison offers 4 different ones, and that can be a little confusing picking the right one, but it can make a big difference even if they're not solar. If you can move your usage to the off-peak or super off-peak times, you can just save a lot of money. And I operate my car. I charge it at those hours. I have a timer on my dishwasher, and I do my dishwashing in the middle of the night. I have a timer on my clothes washer, and I do the same thing, have it start in the middle of the night. I set the clothes washer so that the clothes will be done when I get up early in the morning, and then I change it, move the clothes from the washer to the dryer, and I'm still running the dryer on the super off-peak time. And I've moved a lot of my usage to those super off-peak times, and save a lot of money that way. And that can be done with or without solar. And with solar, then the nice part about solar is when I'm generating, that's when the rate is the highest because the sun's out and that they pay me dollar for dollar the same rate that I would pay, only they pay me if I'm sending electricity their direction.
So solarizing your house is not a necessary condition for owning an electric vehicle and charging it at your home. You could put in a charging station. A 240 charging station would not need to have to solarize your home to do it.
I did that for a year. I had the Volt for over a year before I put solar on our house.
Yeah. Is it possible to charge your Volt, for example, off just regular wall 110?
Yes.
On the standard AC household electrical?
Yes, and a lot of people do. The Volt, because the battery is not that big, it's only a 16 kilowatt hour battery, and so it can be charged in 7 hours on 110.
You could cut that time down with 220.
Yeah, from 7 hours it becomes 4 hours.
I see. Okay. Okay. Well, it becomes the question then becomes for the consumer. What is the cost? What are the features involved that that one would make those decisions based on to buy an electric vehicle? Certainly, as you mentioned in the clip, it's a beautiful ride. It's sound, basically soundless driving. You just hear the rush of the road underneath you. And of course, there's the argument that we are part of a green ecosystem, and that's got to be comforting. But in terms of dollars and cents, what for the time being, people can expect if they went out shopping this summer season for a car, they could expect, assuming that they qualified on their end, tax credit wise,
Yeah.
that they could count on the federal and
Right.
the state incentive.
The federal, yes. The state,
no,
no.
at this time.
My guess, and it's a guess, my guess is that state thing is going to fund.
Yeah.
The governor's getting a lot of flack from multiple sources for the particular action he's taking.
And it's the federal incentive that is really the larger
Correct.
amount anyway.
Yeah.
That brings me to another point. I quickly want to get this in about, okay, so I buy a car, and everybody's consideration for buying a vehicle is always, what's a resale? What can I sell it for? I don't hear too many people talking about resale of electric vehicles. We're so consumed about the whiz-bang aspect of these cars as new vehicles on the market. Tesla's only been on the market a few years. Volt since 2009 or 10. Yeah. So how do you deal? I mean, you certainly the two of you have looked at what are my options? You bought a previous version to your
Yes.
P85D.
I had a P85 and I traded that in for a P85D, and then I subsequently upgraded that to the ludicrous mode. But I was able to get a very, very high trade-in value, and Tesla guarantees that you're going to be on par with the S-Class Mercedes trade-in.
A guarantee.
Well, they say a guarantee for trade-in. The Tesla resale market is actually kind of hot too, because people always want to try to get them. And
Will Tesla buy it back?
Tesla bought mine back during my window, and I lost a few $1,000s here or there. Well worth the upgrade price to do that.
But that was only because you upgraded to a new
Right,
Tesla.
I upgraded. But people do that all the time. I mean, the most recent feature was an autopilot feature, dual motor, this and that. So there was a lot of trade-in for that, and it created now a single motor version and then a dual motor version, and that generated significant number of sales again for Tesla. And as they come out with a new model and new options with significant benchmark increases, people do want to do that. And you could go to Buena Park at the Tesla store, right off basically Valley View, right where Buena Park is for the near Knott's Berry Farm, and they have a whole lot of used Teslas you could buy today. And people do that because they want to get whatever the next model is, and that's a very hot market. The Southern California market for Tesla is the second biggest market in the world, only second to San Francisco, where the Fremont factory is. So there's quite significant resale value for Tesla.
And how does that play out with the Chevy Volt and the Spark? Resale-wise.
Probably not as good. The Spark may be even one of the worst. I suspect Chevrolet will quit doing the Chevrolet Spark once the Chevrolet Bolt comes out. And I don't know that there'll be a lot of market for it. Typically, we personally, my wife and I, we don't worry that much about resale value because we hold on to our cars a long time.
I mean, going back to rebates for a minute, with how many thousands of people on the list for
the new Model 3 is a new edition of the Tesla, and that's going to be the economy version. It'll start out at $35,000, and in the first 24 hours, they had somewhere between 225 and 300,000 pre-orders of $1,000 each, and that's exceeded any car pre-order or any product of any kind. But the theory behind that car is to make it accessible. Right now, the Model S being fully loaded is not accessible. But being a $35,000 car, that is quite accessible. And it turns out that about 35% of the cars are more than $35,000 that are sold. So that's quite a big market. And they're planning to have capacity by the end of next year, going in 2018, of making 500,000 Model 3s per year.
Now, how is that going to affect the rebate initiative?
Well, it's going to be done because 200,000. Tesla's at about 110,000. He had 83,000, but 110,000 cars. And within the next, even by 2017, it's going to be over for Tesla on the full rebate of 7,500.
Okay.
So by the time you get into Model 3, which is the end of the year, it's going to be down to the next tier lower for Tesla rebates, for sure.
But important to note that that doesn't have a direct effect on rebates for other brands
Right,
and
it's
models
model
of
for
cars.
model.
Correct.
I mean, it's
Okay,
manufacturer
correct.
for manufacturer.
It's strictly per manufacturer.
Yes.
Speaking of government and incentives and the possibility of them going away, where do we sit right now with the white stickers and the green stickers and the special lane access for electric vehicle, alternative vehicles? Is that going to go away?
There are two carpool lane stickers that are currently active, and they're different laws, and so the rules are different. And one is a white sticker that is for zero emissions vehicles, such as hydrogen fuel cell and battery powered electric, and certain alternative fuels such as natural gas and propane. There is no limit on how many of those can be issued. As of April, about 99,000 have been issued, and that law will expire January 1st, 2019, unless they extend it. They've already kind of talked about maybe extending it to 2025. Nothing's happened yet, but they're thinking about it. The other is a green sticker, and those are for certain plug-in hybrids that to encourage people to buy those. And there was a limit on that, and it got increased, and finally settled at 85,000, and so far has not been increased beyond 85,000. And 85,000 have already been given out as of December 2015. So if you buy one of those cars, the DMV will take your application without the fee, it's only $8 anyway, and put you on the queue in the event that the 85,000 limit is increased. That law will also expire January 1st, 2019, and after that point, then people can't use the carpool lane with a single occupant, unless they extend the date further than that.
Okay, so the all-electric vehicle, what are its options as far as the
They can get the white sticker,
The white sticker, okay.
and you can still get those.
You can still get them. But again, subject to government approval.
Right, right.
Okay, and 2019 is the cutoff year
Currently.
currently. Okay,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
and the argument against allowing this is there's too much congestion in the carpool lanes. And the federal government has some standards about how fast carpool lanes should be moving, and many of our freeways no longer meet those standards because we got a lot of cars in the carpool lane. Yeah. A lot of them with white or green stickers on them.
And we're not building any more freeways.
Right.
Which I want to bring up a point that kind of dovetails into that issue, and that is the issue of autonomous vehicles. We read recently how the upper level vehicles and production cars. I don't know if a Volt will do this yet, but where the car will automatically stop if it sees a hazard in front of it. And then we saw a minor exception to that rule with a Tesla lately that ran smack dab into a semi-truck crossing the road. That incident notwithstanding, are autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles being, prime among them, are autonomous vehicles going forward going to become essential to traffic flow in Southern California?
I think so, and I'd like to comment on your Tesla stories. So Tesla has about 110 million miles using the autonomous driving. I use it every day. It is estimated to be about 10 times safer than human driving. And you're supposed to maintain a visual acuity of the road and be paying attention to the road. You're not supposed to be watching Harry Potter and speeding, which is what this gentleman was doing, unfortunately. But I think it is a very safe option for driving. I think it is a very good for other drivers to be doing this as well. And as autonomous cars progress further, autonomous vehicles will become more in sync with each other, and they will actually coordinate turns and speeding up or letting in cars as you want to signal. It's not going to be like it is today. If you put in your signal, the guy behind you is going to close that gap. With a fully autonomous fleet, as it's going to be in the future, the cars will communicate with each other, and they will brake, they will operate, they will let in a car. They will be fully navigation ready. We'll be able to turn and look at stoplights and things. So I think that's where it's going, and I think that will be far safer than anything. And the biggest reason I think going forward for doing that is decreasing congestion. Since the cars will be able to be closer and pack closer and drive more efficiently, you could probably increase the traffic capacity by 50% while maintaining speed on the freeway.
Michael, you're a commuter driver. I mean, does this argument apply to your kind of driving?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's really going to be the best benefit eventually of autonomous
fully
vehicles.
Autonomous driving.
Right. And we still have some steps to go. I mean, Tesla makes it very clear that they want you actively able to take over control of the vehicle at a moment's notice. Well, if you're driving bumper to bumper, and expect the car is going to have to be able to do it. A person cannot react that fast, which is why we have so much space, unused space, on a fully occupied freeway. It's because we have to, because we're human and we need reaction distance.
Okay. Well, we certainly could extend the range of this conversation into the next hour, I'm sure, and there's so much more to consider. I hope we have given people something to chew on here with maybe just as a starter primer for electric vehicle ownership. As a last question to both of you gentlemen, and really here's the bottom line. Would you purchase an electric vehicle, or would you participate in the purchase of an electric vehicle for your own kids? Let's say they were going away to college, you weren't going to see them for the next year, they were on their own. Would you send them off in an electric vehicle?
I think I would. I did put a purchase in for a Model 3 for our son, who's a college graduate and on his own now. I would definitely do it. I think that that's the direction to go. I think the affordability is becoming more and more affordable. Like Mike said, there's a lot of cars in the $20,000, $30,000 range. The Model 3 will be $35,000 range, but I think that's still quite accessible. And I feel very, very comfortable on the ability to charge, not having range anxiety, being able to comfortably get to where you want from A to B safely and economically friendly.
Michael, I just happen to know you actually did that. You actually put your kid.
Yeah,
you gave him the Volt, right?
Yeah,
and he took it to college. I guess you're driving the Spark now, huh?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Actually, my wife commutes in it.
Yeah, so you've answered that question for me.
Yeah.
He's implemented it.
Yeah, yeah, you've actually done it.
Well, when we bought the Volt, the intent was that it was going to be his car.
Oh, okay.
But we said this is a little bit more expensive car. We got all the bells and whistles on the Volt, and we said this is going to be a little more expensive car than we've done with your siblings. So your mother's going to drive it for 3 years, and then it becomes your car, and that's happened now. So.
Okay, all right. Well, as it happens, we've run out of time, and a very stimulating conversation. Thank you, gentlemen. I knew that you would bring two different perspectives to the table, and I think you've done that very admiringly. Michael Manning of Los Alamitos, and Ron Kochi of College Park East. Two very different philosophies about electric vehicles, and we think that's what we needed to bring to the table for you folks out there to make a decision about your next car. We hope it's an electric vehicle, but we'll leave that up to you. And if you weren't sufficiently motivated toward that end, stay tuned. And as we roll out with credits, we bring you a little bit of a view of the electric vehicle, past and present and into the future. The electric vehicle as we have known it and as we may see it in the future. I'm John Underwood for Backstory. Drum roll, please.